All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. You're here with Mind the Moment, our coffee house in the cloud, a place to build community, feel connected, and get centered. It is Friday, April 24th, 2020, which means that it is the International Day of Multilateralism and Diplomacy for Peace. My name is John Roberts from Harvard Pilgrim Health Care's mindfulness program, and I am pleased as punch to present the return in glory of Tara Healey, founder and director of our program. Good morning, Tara.
Good morning. Hello, everyone. Welcome.
So in a moment, I will hand it over to Tara to lead us in a 10-minute guided meditation, after which I will get us into a Q&A before wrapping it all up just before 9 a.m. And speaking of Q&A, you may have noticed at the bottom of your screen an option to open up a chat box. At any point, please do so. Use it to type questions and comments. Speaking of which, Tara, is there anything you'd like to ask folks to comment on as we get started?
Yeah, I would love to start the way that we have been over the last couple of practices and just find out, knowing that emotions fluctuate throughout the day, but how are people feeling this morning? What is maybe a word or a phrase that you would use to describe just what's going on for you? How are you feeling?
Excellent. So as folks type, it looks like we have about
Yeah.
north of 60 people joining us at the moment. We'd love to hear from some of
Mhm.
you. Keep in mind that only Tara and I will be able to see what you type, and if we don't read your question or comment out loud, please know that we do read and appreciate them all. And before we close, I will also point you towards some other ways that you can get in touch with us too. So we got a lot of stuff coming in here now.
Mm,
All right, it is a range as usual.
yeah.
Somebody says very, very sad, calm, scattered, hopeful, overwhelmed, appreciative, nervous, worried, slow, scared, tired and needing peace,
Mm,
confused, calm, connected, unmotivated, hopeful, dreary. Yeah, it's that kind of day out there here in New England. So Tara, that is a few of
mm.
what folks are saying. And you might have a few things to say about that, but I also want to ask you. Regular viewers may have noticed that you've been gone the past couple
Yeah.
weeks. I wonder
Yeah.
if you'd like to comment a bit about what's been going on in your own life.
Yes, I would. Yeah, so I have been gone. Fridays is typically the day where I lead the practice, but I unexpectedly had my mother with me over the last 2 weeks because she was exposed to COVID in the facility where she lives out in Western Mass. And as you might imagine, it was a challenging 2 weeks for a lot of reasons, but one, my house isn't really conducive to an older person. My house is old, so the floors are uneven. It just for a lot of reasons. It's really not designed for somebody who is moving a little bit slower. And she also has dementia. So probably I would say she's still highly functioning, but kind of moderate dementia. And so I found myself really with a range of emotions. And as I was reading what all of you were sharing, there so much of that has been true for me as well. But the first week I was with her, I found myself fearful because I knew she'd been exposed and she had to self-isolate with me, and trying to social distance in my house, and especially with someone who's cognitively impaired, was next to impossible. And so the 2 weeks I felt fear, sadness, grief, frustration, anger, and I also felt guilt. And that was a prominent emotion, in part, I think, because there is so much loss, illness, and pain around the world. I mean, our lives are forever impacted in a whole variety of ways. And in a way, I was feeling like, what right do I have to feel all these negative emotions, these difficult emotions, when so much is happening? But as I've also been talking with friends and family who are doing relatively well, they're sequestered with their families, they're also feeling guilt for feeling relatively well. Um, And a neighbor said to me the other day that she's really suffering a lot of loneliness and then feeling guilty for the loneliness. So I think it's such an interesting juxtaposition, these differing emotions that we're all feeling amidst what's going on globally. And so I kept over the whole 2 weeks kind of using the practice to help reframe and to actually be okay with whatever is arising. So as Sharon Salzberg, who is a wonderful teacher, will often say, you simply feel what you feel. And that's really what mindfulness practice is, that there is nothing left outside of our awareness. It's not like we are inviting feelings in. They arise based on circumstances, and they're all valid. They all belong. And so whatever shows up, we can actually be with it. And I want to just quickly kind of go through a short poem by Rumi called The Guest House, because it is, I think, perfect for what is going on and what many of us are feeling. So I think this will be familiar to some of you. Let me put my glasses on. So this being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house of its empty furniture. Hang on. Still, treat each guest honorably. And that, I think, is probably the most important line in this whole thing. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight, the dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door, laughing, and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. And so with that, what I would like to do is just lead us. Unless, John, you have something else you'd like to say before I guide the practice? Good to go? All right. So in mindfulness practice, it's very common to hear turn toward the feeling or experience the feeling, make room for it, but I don't think it's always clear how to do that. And so what I'd like to do is begin by just kind of grounding us in our body. And the idea is that with showing up or turning toward or feeling whatever it is we're feeling, we're actually coming out of the stories and into the body to feel what are the physical sensations that the body produces as a result of whatever is going on. And to remember that they're all included. Whatever is going on belongs. So let's just go ahead and settle into either a seated or a standing posture, even lying down. Whatever posture you're in, allow yourself to settle into that particular posture. And see if you can surrender your weight into the support of the surface that's holding you. Maintaining a spine that is straight but not stiff, so that you are wholly engaged in the practice with an upright, engaged spine, and the body softening to the degree that you can around the spine. Your eyes can be open or closed, and if they're open, you want to gaze down just a little bit to help remove peripheral distraction. And just for a moment, noticing first sound that may be in the room that you're in or around you. Just becoming aware of sound. And allowing sound to remain in the background and begin to bring the awareness into the whole body. So just noticing how things are, noticing the whole body, and again, making any micro movements to that are supportive, that hold you upright with an engaged yet relaxed posture. And just see what physical sensations your body is offering you now. What's most prominent? Pulsing, vibration. It could simply be the points of contact with the body and the surface that you're on. What's most prominent? And see if you can bring a receptive attitude to whatever is occurring, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. And I'll take us through a short guided body scan. So bringing attention to the very top of the head and aware of sensations or a lack of sensations, which is something to be aware of. And bringing attention down over the face. So aware of the eyes, the nose, the cheeks, the jaw, and softening the muscles of the face just to the degree that you can. And beginning to sweep awareness down over the neck and shoulders. And just noticing how things are, what sensations are making themselves known to you, or lack of. And bringing awareness down over the upper arms, the elbows, the forearms and hands. Again, aware of sensation, lack of sensation, and a softening just to the degree that you're able. And now bringing awareness to the torso, so the whole front of the body and the back of the body. And perhaps aware of the breath in this part of the body as you inhale and as you exhale. And bringing awareness down over the buttocks, the hips and thighs. Perhaps noticing if you are sitting or lying down, the points of contact where the body meets the surface. Or aware of any other sensations. Continuing to sweep your awareness down over the knees, the lower legs, and the feet, including the toes, and aware of sensation or lack of sensation. And so, once again, just whole body awareness and notice what physical sensations the body is offering with a receptive attitude in the mind, one of receiving, one of interest and curiosity. Nothing special to do with it other than to be aware and receptive. And let's go ahead now and begin to have a bit of a more narrow focus on breath sensation. So begin to notice that as you breathe in and as you breathe out, where in the body that sensation is most pronounced for you. And you can, there's nothing special you need to do with the breath. Allow it to come to you. You don't have to change it or make it different. So as you breathe in, as you breathe out, do you notice it in the belly, the abdomen, chest, nostrils? Taking a moment to notice where your attention can anchor onto that sensation the strongest, where it's most pronounced. And just for the last couple minutes, each time the mind wanders, which it will a lot, and we're not trying to stop thought. We just notice, we can make a mental note thinking, and then simply return to breath sensation where it's most pronounced. And just gently noticing where the mind is, returning to the breath. And in just a moment, we'll bring this meditation to a close. And as we bring this meditation to a close, may we be peaceful and at ease. May our heart be soft and open. May we be safe and protected. And may our bodies be healthy and strong. And for all of those known and unknown to us, may they be peaceful and at ease. May their hearts be soft and open. May they be safe and protected, and their bodies healthy and strong. And when you feel ready, allowing the eyes to open.
All right. Thank you, Tara. So we've been thinking a lot about uncertainty here in the Mind the Moment virtual coffee house. And part of uncertainty, as I say, is not only not knowing what might arise, but not knowing exactly how you'll react to it if and when it does arise. So in a moment, Tara, I'm going to ask you the following question.
Okay.
How have your behaviors changed in response to what is going on in your own life? And have you found those changes in behavior to be surprising, interesting, uplifting, instructive? And for the folks at home, we'd love to get your take on this too. I'm going to share a few thoughts in a moment. And in the meantime, please share your own insights and observations in the chat box.
Yeah.
How have your behaviors changed in response to what is going on in your
Yeah.
own life? And have you found those changes in behavior to be surprising, interesting, uplifting, or instructive? So
Yeah.
a few days ago, while I was considering this question in preparation for today's session, my partner Annie and I received some sad news. which is that our cat was killed by a coyote while performing his nightly rounds. His name was Townes Van Cat. He was a mackerel tabby, and he was 11 years old. So I want to make it clear that we don't consider him to be a victim. We don't consider him to have been murdered. We don't hold anything against the coyote. He lived his life as an inside-outside cat, and his spirit was indomitably wild. Though he seemed to appreciate or perhaps merely tolerate our apartment as a chill-out lounge, he never learned to amuse himself inside four walls. And when trapped within those walls for more than 24 hours, no number of laser pointers or parlor games could keep him from flipping out. When we finally would open the back door for him in the gloaming, he would shoot down the stairs like firecrackers had been strapped to his haunches. He only seemed to be his true best self in participating in nature, and his death was simply that final act of participation. Nevertheless, he had been Annie's ward for 11 years, and I had been co-humaning him for 2, and so it's hard not to miss him. 25% of the mammals who had been living in our household are gone. But because my attachment to the cat was slightly less muscular than Annie's, I took on the task of gathering his things together. And while there were a lot of obvious ways we had made space for his presence, his feeder, his scratch pad, the off-brand slanket we had repurposed as a bed for him, there was another layer of much subtler ways we had made space for his presence, which surprised me to encounter. There was the cast iron tortilla press, which we used to weigh down the lid of the compost bin, lest he molest any discarded chicken scraps. Any food with even a vanishing amount of fat content had to be placed under lock and key. He was an old and experienced licker of butter. But in his absence, I've come to see how every aspect of my routine had been determined by his presence. I could never sleep past 7 a.m., even on the weekends, for need of having to let him in from his nightly promenade. If I was late, he would rattle the shingles with his signature discordant yowl, which sounded a little bit like Ozzy Osbourne's intro to Crazy Train. I can see, too, the extent to which I had trained myself to move around the house with a cat-like step of my own, lest I should rouse him sufficiently from his daytime slumber to begin following us around and begging for food. So it wasn't always easy to make space for him. But there's a funny thing about choosing to make space for anything in your life. The choosing seems to make it easier to make space for everything in your life. Once you turn on the mechanism of making space for other beings, it becomes difficult to switch it off. The need to accommodate Townes became a material reminder to be mindful, to move carefully through my environment, to honor it, to not take anything for granted, to see things as another creature might see them. And mindfulness, I have found, only begets more mindfulness. When it became clear that he was gone, the space we had made in our lives for him presented itself as a seething pocket of emptiness. But then the mechanism of making space, a mechanism which he had helped inspire in us, kicked in, allowing us to make space around the space he had left behind. So I found it helpful to do this in 3 particular ways. First, to preserve the space, which I do by pausing to appreciate the things that he appreciated in the way I think he would have appreciated them. Standing at attention in a sunbeam as though awaiting orders, kneeling down near the bush he preferred to nest under, listening to the birds in the branches above. Secondly, I found it helpful to simply hold the space, to make space for feeling his absence instead of trying to push it away. And thirdly, I've tried to make the space an acclamation, a declaration of truth, namely, dwelling in the belief that his death is not a sign of nature seeking to destroy, but rather a sign of nature's unfailing, unfaltering emergence. So to Townes Van Cat, if he had lived his life differently, he may have lived longer, but if he had lived his life differently, then it would not have been his own. For all those whom we've loved, let us know that we're better off for having done so. So Tara, let me repeat the question to you.
Yeah.
How have your behaviors changed in response to what might be going on in your own life?
Yeah.
And have you found those changes to be surprising or interesting or uplifting or instructive?
Yeah. All of the above. I think, so there were a couple things. One, with my mom here, I think generally, I was surprised by some of the strong emotions of grief and fear and anger. And um, just really reframing sort of a lot throughout the day and doing a very simple offering myself some self-kindness, just literally saying the phrase, may I be well, may I be well, like acknowledging that what was going on and sort of softening around it. And just the simple phrase of may I be well, even if I didn't feel it, I trust that practice so deeply. So I think I was surprised by how strong some of my emotions were around having my mother here. The other thing I'm so much more conscious of not wasting anything. And I see the degree to which I didn't have that awareness. So I would say, just the constant reminders of caring for ourselves and whatever emotions arise, and doing so in very simple ways throughout the day. And then the second thing, which is a big thing, is like nothing gets wasted pretty much. I am using everything. And in the past I might have said, oh, this has been 3 days in the fridge, I'm tossing it. But instead I would like throw it into soup. So yeah, so those are two things, but I would love to hear what others have to say.
Well, I also feel like this is like a catchphrase that we should all be having right now, which is throw it into soup. It's like, well, we have all these things, all these, physical things, but also emotions, and
yeah,
throw it into soup. I think that is.
Yeah. So John, what are people saying? I'd love to hear.
Well, let me start. There's a couple of things I think are I want to bring to your attention. One, someone says, the poem you read was amazing. Can you give the author and the title again?
Yes. Rumi. So he's a 12th century poet, and it's called The Guest House.
And Rumi is spelled R-U-M-I.
R-U-M-I, Rumi, The Guest House. And it's just a Google away. And I love that poem for the times that we're in, because it is invite them all in. Nothing, and it's harder when the emotions are difficult or painful, because there's a natural and understandable tendency to just turn away and distract. And yet the ability to feel them by bringing your attention to the body and literally just seeing, like, how is this grief, anger, fear, sadness showing up? What am I noticing at the level of sensation? Like, you are a scientist and the subject. So tingling, tightness, heat, that's what turning toward and feeling means. And I think sometimes that gets shortchanged in the practice.
So someone mentioned paying more attention to their self-care, such as meditating, walking, keeping up connections, all being very supportive things. I think that keeping up connections is great in doing it in large and small ways. Someone else mentioned, I've been slowing down, and when I walk and see neighbors, I smile and say hello a lot. And that's another really, more subtle way that you can make that connection. I mean, a lot of people, I think, are doing what we're doing right now, Tara, sort of, having video conference calls or things like that, but also just smiling at the people that you see on the street. And I want to remind folks that even if you're wearing a mask, people can tell you're smiling in the eyes, and so it's, don't hesitate.
Yeah.
Tara, somebody asked a question which I think is really interesting. I'd like to just pass this on to
you.
This person says, I am on medication for anxiety. These times have been particularly trying. I've been trying, I've tried mindfulness and meditation in the past, never with continuity, because I have a really hard time practicing them. Do you have any recommendations? Should I just keep practicing? I find that a more active practice like yoga or jogging are very helpful as well. I wonder if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, so is the reason for not practicing, I'm not sure if I missed part of that question, because the anxiety is high? Is that the reason for not doing it?
I think, let's assume yes.
Okay, all right. So I would say a couple of things. That movement practices when you're feeling anxious are fantastic. And so doing yoga or walking meditation and bringing attention to the way the body is moving and to the breath. And as the mind wanders, which it will in, walking practice or in other movement, yoga, the mind will, even when you set the intention, just that's natural. And you just keep on bringing the attention back. I would say the other thing is, depending on, the level of anxiety, I mean, we all have it, myself included, in differing degrees, is that there is value in doing short practices and seeing if you can come out of the thought stream about anxiety or whatever, the thought streams might be that are uncomfortable or distressing. And as you're in a sitting practice, bringing your attention to the whole body and noticing what's happening. So bringing your attention to the physical experience and not looking for it to be comfortable or easy or pleasant, but just see if you can bring your attention to however the anxiety is manifesting physically. So that cultivate or up the interest and the receptivity. And then when it feels like too much, you can sort of back off. And always returning to the breath is a good anchor. But again, and I've said this a lot, the breath does not have to be the only anchor, and sometimes that causes anxiety. So you can use sort of whole body, points of contact with the body. You could use your hands, put your hands maybe on your thighs and feel that connection. You could use sound. I really encourage people to trust their own inner knowing. I mean, often people think they're doing it wrong, and I think that's just a common thing. But the idea with having an anchor is that we are learning to cultivate steadiness of attention. So every time the mind wanders, you just bring it back to whatever you're choosing. And then the mind wanders and you bring it back. That helps to gain some balance of mind. It's like a calibration of the mind. That kind of steadiness in itself enables us to practice mindfulness with more ease and essentially employ that steadiness in the service of seeing what's happening.
So I thank you for that, Tara. I've been doing a terrible job of keeping time this morning, but there's one comment I wanted to read because
yes.
I really love it. This person says, I started my mindfulness practice this week using your YouTube videos and have attended the Tuesday session and today. I've been wanting to start this for a while as I work full-time, care for my son and my husband who had a stroke in 2018. Sorry to hear about that. But thank you so much for having all of this great information available online. I've been sleeping better, being more present for my family, and doing things that have been on my mind for a while. Thank you, and thank you. And I think that's actually a great lead-in for me reminding folks where you can contact us and find us. So, we're back here every Tuesday and Friday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. You can find the links to these sessions and other resources at our main site at harvardpilgrim.org/mindfulness. And meanwhile, please do drop us a line at askmtm@harvardpilgrim.org or leave a comment on our Facebook page. Our goal is not only to practice together, but also to learn from each other. So let us know what's been on your mind this week. And you can leave us a voicemail as well at my desk number if you like, 617-509-7047. You can rewatch this session and older sessions on our YouTube page and find guided meditations on our SoundCloud page. And just one final note, if I may, on the subject of making space for goodness. My neighborhood donut shop, which is Masshole Donuts, has set up a system to allow folks to donate donuts through contactless delivery to healthcare workers. And while, to paraphrase the modern cookie monster, who might say, donuts are not an everyday food, these are not everyday times, and sometimes a donut says a mouthful. So more information on that donation program can be found on their Facebook page, which is facebook.com/massholedonuts, with donuts spelled DONUTS. All right, Tara, it's great to have you back. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, no, I just want to thank you all for joining this morning, and it's great to be back. So thanks everybody, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Excellent, thank you, Tara. We'll see everyone again soon. Have a great day.